She stood there smirking as my tractor got dragged up onto the tow truck, chains clanking in the morning light. The field was buzzing with neighbors whispering, some filming, and Karen, our HOA president, was loving every second of it. She shouted so everyone could hear, "You can't keep that rusty machine here. This community has standards." I wiped the sweat from my forehead, staring at her with mud still on my boots, knowing full well she had crossed the line. The tractor wasn't just a machine. It was the only way I was pulling this year's harvest before the rains came. I asked her calmly, "Who gave you the right to touch my equipment?" She waved a paper in the air, some bogus violation notice with HOA letterhead, and said, "According to our rules, you're not allowed to operate farm vehicles on this property. It's an eyesore." My fists clenched, but I didn't move. My little boy stood at the edge of the field, clutching his lunchbox, watching the only thing keeping our farm alive being stolen in front of him. Karen leaned closer, her perfume choking in the heat, and whispered so only I could hear, "Pay your fine or lose everything." I looked at her, then at the crowd, and let out a small laugh. She thought she had humiliated me. She thought she had power. What she didn't know was that every acre under her feet, every inch of this farmland, wasn't just mine. It was protected under a lease signed with the state itself. She could tow my tractor today, but she had no idea what storm was about to hit her.
The tow truck rumbled down the dirt road with my tractor chained to its bed, but I didn't chase after it. Karen strutted like she'd won a battle, waving that fake notice in the air. "This is what happens when you break HOA rules," she barked loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. A few people clapped awkwardly, afraid of her, while others just shook their heads. My boy ran to me, eyes full of tears. "Dad, what are we going to do? We need the tractor." I put a hand on his shoulder and said softly, "Don't worry, son. Sometimes you let them think they're winning before you show your hand." I pulled a folded envelope from my back pocket and raised it high where everyone could see. Karen froze, her grin sliding off her face as I began to speak. "You all see this?" I waved the document in the air. "This is the state lease. Every acre of this land, including the roads you're standing on, belongs to me under a 20-year contract with the state government." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A man in a ball cap asked, "Wait, you mean the HOA doesn't control this farmland?" Karen's face turned bright red. "That's a lie. Don't listen to him, folks. The HOA sets the rules here, not him." I walked closer, handed the envelope to an older neighbor and said, "Go ahead, read the seal." The man squinted, then looked up at Karen. "He's telling the truth. This is official." The crowd started murmuring louder now, cameras pointing at Karen instead of me. She tried to laugh it off, stammering, This doesn't mean he can break rules." But she was unraveling. That's when I dropped the line that made the whole neighborhood go dead quiet. "Karen, you didn't just tow my tractor, you towed state property."
Karen's smile collapsed the second I said those words, but she doubled down like she always did. "Don't listen to him, he's bluffing," she yelled, waving her arms at the neighbors. But before she could spin another lie, 2 county sheriff trucks pulled up, lights flashing across the field. The tow truck driver froze mid-step, still halfway through securing the tractor. One deputy climbed out and asked, "Who authorized the removal of this equipment?" Karen pushed past the crowd, holding up her crumpled notice like it was a badge. "I did. This man's in violation of HOA rules, and I demand you cite him for it." The deputy took the paper, glanced at it, and let out a dry laugh. "Ma'am, this isn't worth the paper it's printed on. And if what he just said is true," he turned to me, "you got proof of that lease?" Without a word, I pulled the envelope from the neighbor's hands and handed it over. The deputy studied the seal, then whistled low. "Well, I'll be damned. This land is under contract with the State Agricultural Board. That tractor is registered as essential equipment." Karen's voice went shrill, desperate now. "No, he's lying. That can't be legal. He's just some farmer." The deputy's tone hardened as he turned back to her. "Ma'am, by ordering this tow, you've interfered with state property. That's no HOA violation. That's a crime." The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers, phones raised higher than ever. The tow truck driver looked like he wanted to vanish into thin air. Karen stumbled back, her voice trembling. You can't do this to me. I run this community." I stared right at her, calm but sharp. "No, Karen, you don't run the community, you just run your mouth." The deputy leaned closer to her window and said the line that made the whole crowd cheer. "Ma'am, you better call a lawyer."
Karen's face twisted with panic, but instead of backing down, she pulled out her phone and started shouting into it. "I want every board member here right now. We're holding an emergency HOA meeting." The crowd murmured, some laughing, some shaking their heads, but she wasn't joking. Within half an hour, 3 SUVs rolled up, packed with her loyal committee members in matching polos, clipboards in hand like they were about to stage a corporate takeover. They marched across my dirt field in their polished shoes, looking ridiculous, and Karen pointed at me like a prosecutor. "This man is in violation of multiple community standards. He should be removed from this property immediately." The board members nodded along, trying to look official, but before they could speak, the deputy held up his hand. "Hold on, none of you have jurisdiction here. This land isn't HOA territory." But Karen was too far gone. She pulled out another stack of fake notices, slapping them onto my pickup truck, my mailbox, even the side of my barn. "We're fining you $5,000, she screamed. My son peeked out from behind the barn door, fear in his eyes, but I gave him a reassuring nod. I was ready for this. I walked over, peeled one of the notices off the barn, and held it up. "You all think these pieces of paper make you powerful?" I let the silence hang, then added, "Every one of these fines is fraud, and lucky for me, I've been recording since the moment you stepped foot on my land." The deputies exchanged looks, and one of them pulled out his radio. Karen's jaw dropped when she realized what was about to happen. You can't call this fraud. We're the HOA," she stammered. But the deputy spoke into the radio anyway. "Dispatch, we've got potential racketeering and harassment here. Better send a detective." The crowd erupted with gasps. Phones were recording every second. Karen's empire of fake power was starting to burn in front of her own neighbors. The flashing lights grew brighter as an unmarked car rolled up behind the sheriff trucks. Out stepped a state investigator in a gray suit, his badge clipped to his belt. The murmurs in the crowd went silent. Karen straightened her blazer, trying to regain her composure, and said in a shaky but loud voice, "Finally, someone who understands authority. Arrest him. He's refusing to follow HOA law." The investigator didn't even look at me first. He walked straight up to Karen. "You're Karen Doyle, HOA president?" She puffed her chest and nodded proudly. "That's right, and this man is—" She didn't get to finish. The investigator cut her off, holding up one of the fake notices she had plastered everywhere. "Where exactly did you get the authority to issue these?" Karen blinked, stammering. "The board. We printed them. We've always done it this way." The investigator's tone went cold. "Ma'am, this document carries a forged county seal. That's a felony." Gasps rippled through the neighbors, phones zooming in on every word. Karen's face drained of color. I finally stepped forward, my voice calm but steady. "She had my tractor towed earlier. That machine is listed under the state's agricultural contract. She didn't just mess with me, she tampered with state property." The investigator turned sharply toward the tow truck driver. "Is that true?" The man looked like he was about to pass out, but nodded quickly. "She ordered it, paid cash." That was it. The investigator signaled the deputies. They moved in, cuffing Karen's wrists, while the crowd erupted in cheers. She screamed, thrashing against them, "You don't understand! I am the law here! This whole community listens to me!" One deputy tightened the cuffs and said flatly, "Not anymore." Karen's board members scattered, hopping back into their SUVs like rats abandoning a sinking ship. My boy ran out from behind the barn and hugged me, his voice small but relieved. "Dad, does this mean she can't take our stuff anymore?" I knelt down and whispered, "No, son. From now on, nobody takes what's ours." The investigator looked at me, gave a nod of respect, and said one line that made the neighbors cheer louder than ever. Sir, this community doesn't belong to the HOA anymore. It belongs to the law.